It is the 28th of January, and it is 7 o'clock. And I'm calling the meeting to order for the planning board. And the meeting is now being recorded for transmittal, and it will be replayed. Is there anyone in the audience recording this? No. No one recording it, and I suggest we all stand and salute the flag. So we put it up there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do we have any A&Rs?
We do not.
We do not. All right, so we have one thing on the agenda,
That is correct.
and it is the school plans.
That is
And
correct.
who's going to represent the school? Mary Ellen?
I'm just going to do a welcome. So
Okay.
I wanted to, Mr. Chair, members of the planning board, Mr. Burney, Mr. Coyle, and staff members. First, want to thank you for having us here this evening and apologize to you again. We actually weren't aware, or I was not aware, that it was a special meeting on the 7th. So we appreciate you having come out. We understand you didn't have all the information you needed. We're hopeful that you do have all of it tonight. I'm happy to report that following that meeting, there were 2 joint meetings. We do an awful lot of collaboration across the town, and there were 2 joint meetings that were held on consecutive Tuesdays. And we signed a letter. I believe that we have satisfied all of your conditions, and I would respectfully request that at the end of this, others will be doing presentations, that you would support us moving forward. We're excited to have had the town's approval. We know that you're doing your due diligence, and we want to work with you to make sure that we are bringing forward not only a safe educational facility, but one that's fiscally sound for the town and best for the students for the next 50-plus years. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Imsey, chairperson of this SBC. Thank you.
I do have to remind you that present this evening are only 3 members of the planning board. There are 2 members missing. So that if you would like to postpone it until there are 4 or 5 members, that is your prerogative.
Mr. Chair, you'll never have 5 members. 1 member has missed a second meeting, so he is
Okay,
excluded from
So we only
voting.
have 4, okay. It's up to you, if you want to proceed, or,
Well, I mean, do we have,
You need 3 votes in the affirmative. It's the applicant's discretion whether they wish to continue.
yeah, I think we need to, I mean,
Yeah.
keep the process going on. I think, thank you for having us again. Since the last time, we had a lot of discussions. We've answered all this stuff on the Graves letters. There's been a couple of back and forth. And there was some outstanding issues in terms of the floodplain. He agreed with the methodology, but he couldn't approve it, so that was approved by Conscom. We have order of condition for the project going forward with Conservation Commission, so that was passed. The Zoning Board of Appeals passed the 3, the impervious pavement, the parking variance, and the height the height variance and stuff. So we're all approved through those 3. And the last meeting here was a lot of discussion about West Street primarily, turn lanes into the site and possible lanes down to Southbridge Street interchange and stuff. So, like Mary Ellen said, we've had 2 meetings with the town to go through it, and we've also had a supplement school buildings committee meeting, which it was voted on that we'd wrap all this into the school building project because we had savings in the overall budget. And we thought we could support everything that's being shown here tonight. So that's kind of where we're at. So I think if there's specifics about the Graves reports you want to go over first, or if you want to hit go after looking at West Street.
well, we
Stuff.
probably should look at West Street first, and then go over the other stuff later. I mean, this is probably the most important part at this point.
All right, so, Steve Farr from Niche, can you just give us a rundown of where we've ended up now with the current design?
Hi, good evening. I'm Steve Farr from Niche Engineering, the traffic consultant for the project. I'll direct your attention to the plan we have here. As you know, the last time we were here, we talked about, I think, 3 issues. The first one was a left turn into the site. Again, this is Southbridge Street, West Street, obviously here. The site is down in this corner here. So the first issue was the left turn into the site, which was not included on the previous plans. The second issue was the left turn onto Southbridge Street and the widening of the left turn, which was not included in the plan. And the third thing was the addition of a sidewalk from the school all the way down to Southbridge, and that was not on the plan. So we teamed back, as was said here. We met with Bill Coyle and the police and fire chiefs and other members of the town, various departments, and we came up with this plan here, which again, the red is the additional pavement surface beyond the existing roadway. And what we've done is try to take what is now a two-lane roadway, one in each direction, and make it a three-lane cross-section from Southbridge Street all the way to the entrance drive for the school. And basically at the school, as you can see, we have 2 lanes going in the northbound direction and 1 lane coming south. And when you get down to Southbridge, it switches over, so you have 2 lanes going south, which are 2 left turns, and 1 lane going north. This again satisfies those 2 conditions that everybody was worried about. There is about 290 feet of storage on the left turn into the site. It's about 12 vehicles conservatively. And there is just over 400 feet of storage on the left turn onto Southbridge Street. And again, that is a double left turn. The left lane is a left turn only, and the right turn is a left through and a right turn lane. So we have plenty of capacity for both of those approaches. And we also added a sidewalk from the south site driveway all the way down to Southbridge Street. Those are the main components of the plan.
All right, so you have 2 lanes from here, and then they cross over into that, and this would be the lane going to the lights over here?
Yes, this is the southbound lane
Okay, yeah,
that
all right.
continues,
yeah.
right? And then it
And that
widens
turns
to
into
2
a 2
lanes,
lanes,
Yep.
okay, yep,
just beyond the driveway to the
Okay.
school administration building.
yep. And then the other one turns into 2 lanes by the driveway to the, okay, and then...
Same area, right?
Yep,
And this is, now widens out to 2 lanes here.
Alright,
This is the
alright.
fire station driveway.
okay. All right, so how many buses and cars can you queue up on that?
Well, in this 290 feet, you can get about, like I said, conservatively about 12 vehicles, probably more like 15, depending on how long, 20 to 25 feet per vehicle. We're at 6 buses.
All right. And they have to make a left turn through this traffic here.
This is a left turn only lane, yep.
All right, the other concern that we had was, were we going to have to go back to the town to pay for it?
No, I think we answered that.
Okay.
Right now, I think we're anticipating that we'll be able to handle it all inside of
Okay.
what's been approved
All right,
for the school overall. Our budgets are coming in better, and we still anticipate them going down, so we have cushion in there to be able to fund it.
all right, I was assured by the town manager and by the superintendent that we wouldn't have to go back to town meeting for extra funds to do this.
Yeah, the only thing we need, would go to town meeting for is just some land taking. There's there's a water department possibility and
Up at the
Mass
corner?
Electric up beyond,
Up in
as you
here?
get down toward the corner there, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Is there wetlands in here?
Yeah.
And
These
over
these
there?
shaded areas are
Wetlands?
potential
Yeah.
wetland
Yeah.
impacts, yep.
Now, have you been to conservation for those, or do we need to?
We're gonna have to after the, I mean, it was, we were rushing to get to this point, so that's why we're kind of looking at seeing, if we can get the site plan approval and have it conditioned on, having this thing, we're gonna be moving forward. We need to get a full-time engineer on it, do a lot more surveying, to get the actual surveys, because this was done off of aerials and existing
All right,
data.
so at this point, that's a conceptual plan.
Okay, 'cause
Have any questions, Jonathan?
Well, I guess the first thing I would just like to say, clearly a lot of work has occurred since our last meeting, and being one of the people who had raised a lot of these concerns, I really appreciate how seriously you guys have taken this, and I'm really kind of proud of the town of Auburn for all banding together, good leadership, and coming together with a solution that fits within the budget, working with all the departments of the town, and truly appreciate that. I think our requests in the last meeting were to come in with a approved memo from Graves, which I think we have, some additional concerns from the DPW department, which I think we should vet through.
Yeah, we will, yeah.
But but I think you truly took what we said seriously, and I appreciate that. I think I've taken a look at this conceptual plan. I think it provides substantial, probably even more substantial amount of queuing than I anticipated we'd be able to get. I'm impressed that you were able to get the sidewalk onto the street, which was a major concern of mine for safety. And if we can deliver this within the budget, I think, this is a great outcome for the town. So.
Wendy, you have any
I'd like
concerns?
to reiterate all of that. Thank you all very much for the great work you did on this.
Yeah, we appreciate the effort that you put into this, and we also appreciate that we don't have to go back to town meeting, even more so. Okay, so that, and now, this also has to go to, I would imagine, Mass, State. How long will that take?
That's one of the wild cards. I mean, we're gonna have to meet with Mass Highway on the interchange at Southbridge Street. They
Mhm.
control that. We really don't change the geometry, but we are probably gonna have to change some signal heads and stuff to match what's coming into it.
All right, we don't have to touch the state highway, do we?
There's no impact to the
No
state highway
impact to
layout.
state highway at all? 'Cause
No.
that would probably take 6 months, I would think.
Well, there's,
All of that.
it's gonna take 6 months to a year probably to get through the MassDOT
Okay.
process, because we're gonna have to, meet with those folks. They're gonna have to review the
Right.
plans as this affects their signal. There'll be some retiming happening at the intersection, which is their signal.
All right,
And as Mark said, maybe some signal heads will be redone. So that's gonna go through the 25, 75, 100% review process, the MassDOT protocol. It's gonna take
Right.
time.
and do we anticipate this being finished at the opening of schools?
I would say no, not at this point.
No?
Would be well along, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it'll be complete
Okay.
by school opening.
All right,
That's the hard part at the moment. We don't know, I mean, given the state side of it, getting the approvals all the way down to there, that'd probably be the hardest. Some of the stuff up in front of the old Randall School,
yeah,
we can probably get done sooner as long as we, get poles out of the way and stuff.
none of this stuff in here.
Right, because that's only town land that we're taking to make
Yeah.
roadway on.
We're not taking any private land at all, are we?
Not anticipating it, no. That's not, we're trying, everything is working to try to stay away from that. I think the only thing we have is a little bit of slice coming across where the auto dealership has a secondary driveway.
Mikey Perro?
Yeah, so there'd be a little bit of an easement adjustment there, where he's coming out on the back, right next to the Randall School entrance.
Okay.
But then it's New England Mass Electric on the south side and Auburn Water District. If we have to do anything on it would be on the north side.
Hey, well, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. I think you did a nice job on that. All right. So what else were our concerns besides that? Was a pretty big one. All right. Jimmy was concerned about the boat ramp. The
Right.
school department has no plans on closing the boat ramp. No,
Yeah,
okay.
we don't touch it. It's,
Because I've had more comments on that. In fact, I had 2 comments yesterday at breakfast, and I had another one the other night over at the Elks. We're not closing the boat ramp. Good.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Through the chair, I would note that the boat ramp is not property of the town of Auburn. It's
the water
owned and
district.
controlled by the water
Water.
district, so any future plans for the boat ramp are wholly controlled by the water commissioners and the superintendent of the water district. So while this board and the school department may not be looking to close it, the water district may at some point decide that they would choose to close their gate and bar access.
That's Joe. You're going to do that, Joe?
I'm not saying that they will or won't, but
I revoke your membership. Okay. All right, so the pedestrian is taken care of, and the traffic lanes are taken care of. Mass Dot's not taken care of yet. And I went to the ZBA meeting and saw that you got all of that stuff. Okay, all right, all right, all right. All right, and we're pretty much relying on your comments.
Okay, well, I can tell you the majority of our comments, or the major ones, focused around West Street, and the mitigation that they're showing here tonight, as mentioned, was through collaboration of all the departments, and it's what I frankly was envisioning from the beginning, needing the double left turn from West Street onto Route 12, so it's a left turn, and then the other turning lane will be a left through and a right, but there's such a minimal volume going straight and right it'll function primarily as a double left.
We have that on Millbury Street now.
Right, and it's, but I think the benefit with this particular intersection versus Millbury Street, I think there's fewer vehicles going straight, obviously, into the plaza here. So I think this is gonna function better than that particular intersection does, utilizing that configuration. Initially, they didn't have the 3-lane cross-section as they do tonight. They had the left turn lane into the site drive, which we were looking for, and then the 3 lanes at Route 12, but there was such a small gap between them. At our meeting, we'd asked that they go back and extend that area, so we have the 3-lane cross-section completely through. And what this would allow us to do is in the future, if we ever found one of the needs for queuing to be greater than the other need, it's 3 lanes stripe, it's 3 lanes all the way through. We could restripe it essentially if need be. The only one thing that this doesn't show, but we discussed and they've agreed to it, was this, the shoulders on this plan are shown as 1 foot in width. We'd want to see a 4-foot shoulder. And I believe that the through lane, I think, was shown as 11 feet. We'd want a minimum of 12 feet. But those are details we can iron out. Conceptually, we agree with it. As they mentioned, they're going to have to go through MassDOT's process. I'm hopeful that maybe we can be further along, and maybe with working closely with them, ideally have this constructed for the opening of school. So I think with close meetings with MassDOT, if the design consultant who's going to be ultimately preparing the final plans starts working on the project as soon as possible, I think that's possible. I think there's obviously going to be land takings necessary, which is going to require town meeting action, and but ideally to have this ready for advertisement and construction in spring of 2015, I think it's feasible. So this addresses the bulk of our comments. There are a few other minor comments that we have in our letter still that we still need to have addressed, but nothing major. So if the board was inclined to just vote that was one of the conditions that they address the remaining comments. Again, they're not major, so I don't think it's something worthwhile to extend the meeting and not approve it. Our major concerns have been addressed.
Okay, well, we'll just go through it anyway, just to make sure. I noticed the first one is, the plans include the name and owner of the property and deed information. Property lines for the parcel shall be clearly defined. Is that has to be submitted to the funding authority in Boston, and the school department has to have total control of the property, because that was one of the difficulties we had when we built the high school, because the school department did not have control of the fields there, and the state required that the town turn over all control for that facility to the school department. And that's why everything that goes on that school, on those properties, has to be approved by the school department. All right, now, what do the property lines in Mets and Bounds show? Does it show the entire property? Because I notice it says here we have 2 deeds, all right, 2 parcels. One parcel is the one we got from the Masonic Lodge.
But I think through our office, we're just looking for them to show the plan deed references and names of the owners on the plans, just to clearly identify that.
How many owners are there on that property? Just the town?
Yeah, just the town of,
Right.
Just the town, and the
Just-
school
right.
department has control of that entire property.
correct.
So just the ownership and deed references, I think, will
Oh,
satisfy our
oh.
concerns.
Yeah,
Okay.
if I could, Matt Broussard for the site civil engineers. At the time that the last plan set was prepared and submitted, we didn't have access to the current deed information. We do now, so that can easily be added, updated to the existing conditions drawing, which shows both parcels. And eventually, I would assume would be shown as one contiguous property.
One
but
big
right now, as I
property?
understand,
Right,
as
okay.
the
All right, as I say, that was one of our major concerns. And then we had to add all those other properties that we bought, like Beyond Shings and the Holmstrom Building, and we had to do a lot of mitigating with the piece of property that was in the middle of the football field. All right, so that's all taken care of. Demolition plan. What's the demolition plan?
That's been provided, that's
Okay.
acknowledged.
Okay. layout, grading, all that's been taken care of? Any questions on that, Jonathan? No?
Well, I think what the comment was saying is that the plans have been revised correctly, but some of the layers were not corrected, so hopefully we can get that revised on a final plan, and I think that'd likely be one of the things that we would condition relative to the DPW commissioner's comments along here. I mean, I think majority of these are very minor.
Right.
And I think there's a couple in here that I think might just say, ask for a little bit of clarification on. You want to go with those, or you want to go through them
Go ahead.
individually? Okay, well, I think number 4 was another one that likely to have a minor correction made to the plans.
And I can just, they have indicated that granite curbing would be used throughout the project.
Okay, great.
Okay, so we're gonna use granite curbing the way we did in the high school.
Number 6 referred to low-impact development practices, and the use of those. Seems as if the plans indicate a lot of those future requirements will not be incorporated in here. The commissioner had asked that be looked into. I don't know if any follow-up had occurred on that.
If I recall, that comment this is related to future potential requirements for phosphorus treatment.
Right.
All the paved areas on the site now, and as well as the entire building roof, are all subject to pre-treatment systems and infiltration fields, which is a fairly standard practice for phosphorus and nitrogen removal from those areas. So, I think that's, although there's no capacity on this site to do any kind of open vegetative type system that would do the same thing through biouptake of those same nutrients. It's a fairly standard practice, and for example, those systems are used to comply with the Boston and Cambridge TMDL regulations for the same thing now. So I think in the future, I think you'd be covered for those requirements.
And we can work offline if there's anything that additionally that could be done with low-impact development.
Okay.
So I'm not concerned at this point, though. I think it addresses the majority of our concerns.
Okay. Looks like 7 through 14 were all acknowledged, and then 15 and 16 refer to some minor, it looks like issues that came up during the conceptual plan for this design that wanted to at least remain on the record as things that would like to be incorporated in that. 17 was a deferment to the fire department regarding fencing around the tower for fire training.
Yeah, I have a problem with that.
We have that issue, okay.
All right, what we have is, we've got roads going in and roads coming out, and we have this fire tower, and we're burning cars in that area. It's kind of
Yeah.
I guess
and the other thing I'm concerned about is burning cars and having those kind of activities during school hours, or doing school-sanctioned activities, or any activities on those fields, or in the school itself.
as I was thinking about that, I guess my thought was hard to hold the applicant responsible for something that's off their site and not in their control. So I think my hope would be that the fire chief could maybe address that and suggest how that might be accommodated. I would assume most of those don't occur during school hours anyways, and likely if that was a big concern would have been a...
Actually, I don't think it's off their site.
Okay.
If that piece of property is included in what was filed with the state, the school department's in charge of that whole property.
Okay.
Through the chair, I just wanted to clarify what DPW's comment was. We were just concerned about access to the facility.
Children
And
climbing
recommended
into
that
it.
a fence be provided, so I believe the applicant has come back with a chain link fence, and we're just deferring. I don't think the chief has seen that chain link fence, or whether it's a 4-foot high or a 6-foot high fence, but we're comfortable with that, so we'll defer it to the chief as whether or not he's comfortable as well, but it's a 4-foot high chain link fence, I believe.
Well, I can say that I started out in 1964 teaching, and I've taught in the middle school, high school, I've taught DYS, I've taught for the University of Math, Adolescent Treatment Center, and I can tell you that having something like that on school grounds is a tremendous attraction to students. And I would not want to be conducting a class up here while somebody was burning a truck down here. because there's no way that you could keep control of that class, and I keep control of my classes very well. So I would like to put in that there will be no activities in here during school hours, during after-school hours, when there is any school activities going on or any school sanction. And that, to me, is a major thing, because as I say, as an educator, I have never had a lesson plan in the world that said, burn a car out in front of my room.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I don't think anyone has said that there's going to be any burning during school hours. That's never been said. I've had discussions with the school superintendent that go back over a year. I have told the school superintendent that there will not be any burning on the property during school hours. That was said well over a year ago. It doesn't occur now. We don't have the ability to do it now during school hours. Most of the burning that is done in the training tower is done nights and weekends. And I just want to caution the board in terms of what the chair just said in terms of restricting activity at the site during school hours versus restricting activity that could be construed as dangerous. I had a lengthy conversation with the school superintendent today. There is a big difference between, as the chair said, burning a car on the property versus 6 firefighters going and doing hose evolutions inside the building, or doing some hydrant work in the yard, things that don't produce combustion, things that don't produce smoke. So I want to make sure that there is a difference between restricting use and restricting use that would produce what is the main concern, which is smoke. Personally, I think the school superintendent and I understand each other. We have an outstanding working relationship. I personally don't believe that it's something that the planning board needs to put as a condition. I've given the school superintendent my word that we will work together on this issue. We will not be conducting any evolutions that are going to distract students that will be smoky or anything like that during school hours. I don't see it as an issue. We certainly want to be good neighbors. The facility's been there for 15 years. We try to be the best neighbor we can be now. I don't anticipate that there's going to be any major changes to that just because there's a school there.
The facility was actually the result of a grant with Worcester Polytechnical Institute, and it was supposed to be manned by students from Worcester Polytechnical Institute. And when the grant ran out, they disappeared, and that's how it became what it is today.
Through the chair, that is not correct.
Oh, what's correct?
The training facility was built by Chief Roger Belhumeur through CIP. That facility was not built through a grant, and that facility had nothing to do with WPI.
Not that facility. Were the students from Worcester Tech manning that building?
The students from Worcester Tech, yes, they had an agreement to man the fire station. If you're talking about the training facility, WPI had nothing to do with the training facility.
That was added later.
That facility was built in 1999 through CIP money through the town. It was not built through a grant.
That probably should have been relocated up where the police department uses their training, up by the old landfill. Then
Mr.
it
Chair,
would've been out of the way.
I couldn't disagree with you. Like I said to the superintendent today, the plan is to rebuild that training facility in 5 years. And it has been my...
At another site?
It has been my desire, before this middle school project was even announced, to move the training facility to another location, yet to be determined. But it's always been my intention to relocate that training facility.
Now, that would eliminate all my concerns, if that thing is in plans to be moved and plans to get off the school property.
Again, I think, I will reiterate, the school superintendent and I have talked at length about this issue. We understand each other. I don't think that it's something that needs to be restricted by the planning board. If the planning board chose to put some restrictions, I would want you to be very cautious on how it was worded, because again, I completely 100% understand the issue of combustion. But that is not use in general. And I don't want to be my hands tied so tight to the point where we can never use the facility because of because of how it's worded. So the combustion issue is not lost on me. But again, I don't think it's something that needs to be a condition on this, on this project.
The aesthetic condition is very poor, too.
Sure. Mr. I think the DPW concern was really more one of safety and making sure that the applicant was providing a fence. It sounds as if that's been resolved, and I think that's something that I'd personally want to see inside the plan. I think beyond that, from my perspective, I'm satisfied that these conversations have taken place. It seems like you're both on the same page between the school department and the fire department, and I think as long as the fence is in place to kind of prevent access to what could be an attractive nuisance, I'm personally okay.
Yeah. It seems to me that there's an awful lot of good communication that's going on between you and the school department, and we'd like to see that, and I don't think we necessarily, but we'll need to, of course, we would welcome your input as far as the way we word that, if we did move towards conditions.
Well, we can use him and can use the school superintendent.
Sure. Make sure we get it put in there.
I have all the faith in the world in Ms. Brunel. When I did the high school, what did I have? 8 superintendents? 8 superintendents during that entire process, and I've worked with her for a short period of time, and she's the best superintendent we've had. And Joe Fahey has brought our schools back into such a condition that it's really good. In fact, those buildings could be reused for life, well, except for Julia Bancroft, but the rest of them are in excellent condition. Okay. So we got extraneous lines. Those have been removed.
I think the next open comment that wasn't acknowledged is number 21,
Okay?
regarding an access easement with the water district.
Yeah, that's up in this corner up here.
Yeah, I think there's an easement to
Yeah, I actually
the
had a
wells
conversation with the Water District Superintendent, Ken Smith, this afternoon. Because the Water District has wells, which would be
In here.
down here, off the site, they had an easement over the Masonic land to access it. They access it. He said monthly at a minimum, sometimes a couple times a week. The school department on their proposal is providing
The gate.
a turnoff and a gate and a small paved access driveway. So that would be the movement of the easement. He had some minor concerns about the geometry of the turnoff. He said it's really not a big deal. He said that he would like to tweak the geometry and the topography and the location of the gate as they move forward, but it's really sort of fine tuning. He's okay with how it is, but the way that it's laid out right now, he would have to come up against traffic to get a pickup truck in there, and he'd like to sort of open the radius up and maybe close the radius on the north side of the entrance. And he said, again, it's really sort of a fine-tuning thing that shouldn't affect the site. It's not affecting the way the site movement works. It's really individual to Water District trucks, and he said if the board wanted to stipulate either to, the condition that Mr. Coyle talked about with the conditions in the letter being satisfied, or add that the proponent work with the Water District to fine-tune the geometry, topography, and gate location, he's fine with that. He doesn't have an overall problem with it. And he's happy that the easement's being moved. He said it's less plowing for him to get his trucks in and out of there.
Everybody wins.
Sorry, yeah, I saw that the other day.
Sure. So the next one is regarding handicap ramps for the Masonic Circle. I don't know if that has been satisfied since this was issued, or
The majority of the locations requiring handicap ramps do reflect ramps, and the only remaining areas are curb cuts, so that would have to be added to the plan. But as long as they address this condition, again, we'll be satisfied.
Is there gonna be parking along Masonic Circle?
That's something that's been discussed, and I think the superintendent, I know that we've talked about it before this is, the school is open and running, that potentially we would look to post it for no parking, but that would ultimately require a selectmen's meeting and a public hearing. I think that's safe to say that I think that's the town's intent, to have it posted no parking prior to opening.
Yeah, because evening programs, I can see people parking in Masonic Lot.
That was part of the discussion when we
Yeah.
met jointly.
Because I think we usually only meet one night a week, one night a month, but they meet quite a few over there because 3 or 4 lodges in there. Okay, anything else, Jonathan? Where are we going?
Yeah, so number 25, I think, is a very minor thing as well, as are the rest of the outstanding issues, which again, I think our consideration could likely be, acceptance of, or, reconciliation of the comments from the DPW commissioner and potentially a letter to that effect going to the file. But consideration that DMH 20 be kept off the proposed ball field, which I think would make sense to me as well, if it hasn't been already resolved already. There's also 27, a few contours, really some minor corrections on the plans. 28 refers to a snow storage area.
Yeah, I think
Sure.
I think I'm not sure if there's been an updated letter issued, but I believe that the drawings that went out with the bid package and were issued back to the town last week address all these issues. There may be 1 or 2 items that are still hanging out there that need to be discussed,
That was
but
the last
I
set of plans
believe
that I got.
we've covered everything. So,
Okay.
all in particular, the graphic issues and the,
Sure. If that is the case, and the other board members, but I think I'd be happy to just have approval with conditions that these issues be satisfied. And
Yeah,
then
I mean,
prior to final approval, have a letter from the commissioner stating that is.
I
the
think
case.
that
there were no major issues that we saw on our end that we had any objection to complying with fulfilling.
Sure.
Through the chair, I mean, that's not an uncommon condition for the board when they get down to a final approval to, put the condition in there. And as long as it's satisfied upon the application for a building permit, there's generally no issue. So it's not, I mean, the board would even be able to sign the approval letter because the condition carries with the approval letter and,
Right.
The only remaining comment that they probably have addressed, but I maybe before the board, they could be number 53, just for the record, relative to the environmental notification form thresholds. We had discussed whether or not we had exceeded the 5-acre threshold. I know we're very close on with that threshold. If you have any final numbers on what your impervious area.
Well, we've looked at it, and even with the addition of the work on West Street, if that's considered to be a combination to this project, we're still under the 5-acre threshold for impervious surface.
Okay. Do you have it? Do you have a number, Max? I know you're probably just
Off
under.
the top of my head, I remember it was I believe we were at 4.52 prior to West Street.
Correct.
And if I'm not mistaken, the numbers for West Street that you guys are coming up with were in the neighborhood of 10,000 to 12,000 square feet of pavement addition. So we're still under.
Still under that
I mean, it's
threshold.
close.
It is close. But
It's close, but a very accurate measurement of
good.
the actual project site. So that number's good. The other one's an estimate, but we don't envision it exceeding the total threshold number.
Okay. Thank you.
And that was the only potential ENF trigger. So
Well, if you're comfortable with the rest of the comments,
I'm comfortable.
I think then, provided that they were conditioned, I'd be okay. I don't know if the rest of the board members.
As I say, the only thing I would like to see is some reference to that being moved out of there within a few years, and an agreement between the school department and the fire department on when the facility is going to be used. Is it going to be, not going to be used during school times, not going to be used during periods where there are school activities going on? That I would like to see referenced.
Through the chair, I do want to state that Chief Coleman and I have had conversations, and I'm
Okay.
comfortable that.
Are you comfortable with it,
With
Mary Ellen?
with the fact that, yes, that with our communication, that if there are school day activities or even beyond the school day activities, that we would work cooperatively to make sure that safe activities, such as some of the ones that Chief Coleman referenced, could take place.
Because I'd hate to be substituted in there and have the class go cuckoo.
We'll try not to have that happen.
Thank you. Well, in that case, I would say that we accept it with the conditions.
Sure, make a second. Or do you need a?
I need a motion.
Sure. Well, I'd make motion to approve, pending with the condition being that we receive a letter or a letter from the DPW commissioner that his his comments from his letter of January 23rd, 2014 have been satisfactorily addressed.
Probably also conservation, you have to go back to conservation.
Well, yeah, we'll have to go back for an amended
All right,
filing
you're
now.
all
but-
set with the Board of Appeals. I was there that night.
Correct,
That's all
yeah.
set. Okay.
And then likely adding in our other standard conditions.
Okay, so standard conditions, built to plan,
Hours.
abide by other boards and commissions. Construction hours. What construction hours is the board looking to set?
What typical construction hours being,
Generally, the board in the past has set anywhere from 7:30 to 5 or 5:30, Monday through Friday. Saturdays are 8 to noon, no Sunday, no holiday.
Yep,
Okay.
that sounds right.
Yeah, there are a few houses across the
7:30 to
street there.
5:30.
sure.
Yeah, yep, that's good.
And 8 to 12 on Saturday.
Yeah.
No Sundays and holidays.
Built to plan by all boards and conditions. That usually
Is
will
there a
will
chance to
satisfy.
extend these Saturdays? I mean, is it special that we come back on if it gets into time crunch that we're on a schedule and they're trying to meet the schedule to
8 to
work a full day Saturday and get
Yeah.
8 hours in?
8 to 4 on a Saturday.
I don't have a problem with that.
That's up to the board.
You do have some
neighbors there.
You do have some neighbors.
I mean, the site plan is good for 2 years. They can always petition the board for an amendment. If the board wants to set it now at extended hours, that would be a decision the board would make.
Okay. I don't have a problem with extending it, but I don't know about the other board
I
members.
don't
feel.
either. I don't either. I would like that you don't extend them unless it becomes absolutely necessary.
Okay.
But yeah, I would amend it to
8 to 3, 8 to 4.
8 to 4 on Saturdays, I think. Prevents them from having to come back if that does become needed.
That's,
Other board members agree?
Yeah, sounds good.
is there a second?
Citizens comment?
Yeah, did you make
Point.
citizens comment?
Yeah, any comments
Yeah,
from
Suspend.
Mark? Yes.
wait a minute. Mark Pinal,
Yeah.
Mark Pinal, 4 Field Street. Can you explain to me the light plan inside and outside your building and how many ADA parking spaces you're gonna have? At least, I'd like to see at least 8 or 9. And at the intersection of West Street and Southwood Street, the LA sound, pedestrian lights, in each corner intersection.
I think-
And can they put when someone's in a crosswalk, it lights up like they did at the Worcester Regional Transit Authority hub? And inside the building tag type, the hand railings on right and left of the stairwell, and starting before and end of the stairs too.
What's up, Eric?
Are handrails standard?
What?
On the interior.
Address that, yes.
You know,
Interior,
too.
Do you have
yes.
do you have an answer for that?
I can address
Sure.
the handrails. There will be ADA compliant handrails.
Oh, the entire building, yeah.
They are on both sides, left
On-
and right.
on the
all
land?
stairs.
In the landings too,
Uh,
go all the way around.
no, they're not
How come?
required to go all the way around the
I'd like to see that.
railings.
Well, that's not the purview of this board, Mark.
Oh,
That's
this is that school?
that would be the school building committee.
Oh, I gotta
Because
go
they're
there.
handling the inside. This board is only looking at the site, the access, and how
Okay.
the outside of the building lays out.
We only have control over the plot plan and things.
Can I have a picture what the building's gonna look like? Somehow?
I can provide you.
Yeah.
Thank you, the chair. Yeah.
You have a big one over in the lobby there. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think from what I noticed of the plans that we reviewed, everything seems to be in compliance with ADA, and in fact, along Masonic Circle, the request of the DPW director, which was just conditioned, was to add additional handicap ramps on that side as well to improve access over there as well.
Are they gonna be heated?
What is that?
Is it gonna be heated outside? I mean, the cement will be heated?
I would
you
doubt
gonna-
it. I don't think that's an ADA requirement, but
Just nice to add, you know, New England weather. It has to be on the outside of the building. Could you go stainless steel, not the black on the railings, on the outside of the building?
That probably has to be brought up
School
with the
buildings?
school building
Okay, I'll
committee.
be there.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
okay,
We'll see you there.
I'll be there.
Anything else?
Anything else?
Anyone else in the audience have anything to say? And we have all the conditions down?
You're gonna have enough handicap parking spaces? That's my big thing. There will be also a V&N car in each spot.
Well, we have parking spaces in the front and in the back, don't we? Handicap?
Yep.
Front of the building and the back of the building, Mark. I think you brought that up last time
Yeah.
and we discussed that.
Yeah.
They'll meet the AAB standards for
Right.
the number of parking spaces provided.
Yeah, right.
But what I mean is, sometimes you see just a van only. I wanna make sure it's a van in a car.
Well, there's 161 spaces, and I believe in that there's several van spaces as well as car spaces. Generally, people will lean towards putting car spaces because they take up less room.
Yeah, but what happens if you got a bunch of vans? What's gonna happen?
Well,
Explain, what's gonna, you got-
as I said, they're required to meet all AAB requirements. Anything exceeding AAB, we can't necessarily require.
There are four accessible vehicle spaces, one in the front and there are
In the back.
two
Two in the back.
both of
Yeah.
which are van accessible.
So there's
Yeah.
2 van in the back and 4 car in the front.
Correct. And the van accessible spaces are not, it's not a requirement that they're only usable by vans. It's
Yes.
just signed that way so to alert the
Yeah.
drivers that a van can access. Could you add maybe van in car on that side? A car could use a van space. Yeah, but some people
There's
might
no
think they,
prohibition.
yeah, but some might think they can't use it then. That's my thing. It sounds silly, but it could happen. All I can tell you is that the layout and the number of spaces, the layout, the configuration, and the location of the spaces are all well in compliance with the ADA and AAP regulations that are associated with those items, so. Now, is the field inside school or you people?
I'm sorry, the field?
Yeah,
That's part of the
Stadium?
site plan.
so that'll be ADA appliance? There are accessible seating areas in the bleacher section of the field. Accessible path to the school site.
Okay, any other questions from the audience? If not, I would vote on our motion, it's been made and seconded, we have that all down.
I've got one more thing. Your sidewalks, can you go on asphalt with that? That's it. Don't use the white paint, you hit those cracks, he stops it, like myself. Some of the sidewalks around immediately outside of the school are concrete, I believe some of them are bituminous. You can make all asphalt? The plan as it is right now is for panelized concrete sidewalks, for durability purposes. Well, then when you put the seams in, don't put them that deep, then just put them low.
Asphalt runs when it gets warm, like the sidewalks in front of my house,
Okay.
they run. How do you get them back up? Have to put a rope on it?
Shouldn't be
Jake?
running.
They just keep running? Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty soon they'll be in my backyard.
Sounds like a water
Okay.
issue.
Yeah, it sounds like a drainage problem there. I'd like to see asphalt.
Okay, so we have all our conditions and
Seconded the motion.
seconded the motion.
Um,
What do we need?
No, I guess nothing, because the West Street improvements will be included in the final plan set. That
Right,
will be
because they're
referenced in
submitted.
the
Good call.
Now, the completed plans will be submitted?
For the West Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Well, I mean, whatever, you know,
In other words, for the off-site stuff,
right, as we come, I mean, as we get the next
Complete
phases
set.
of engineering done and then meet with
Okay.
Conscom and figure that out, we'll come back and meet with whatever we need to do for presentations here
All
or
right.
approvals and stuff.
all right.
We'll continue.
When do you think that might be?
Well, you won't need to come back here for West Street.
No,
Okay,
good, we're all done.
okay. But I mean, we can update you on it, we can give you a,
You can come visit.
we can come, so we can tell you what's going on, we could, you know.
Yeah.
Is there a condition that you'd recommend, or?
Well, we discussed at the last meeting, if they're just included in the plan set, then that becomes part of permitting. It falls under the building commissioner. So they've mentioned that the work at Weston 12 could extend beyond when they wish to occupy the building. I know Bill is hopeful that they can do it prior to. If the board wishes to give them leeway beyond occupancy, I would add that. I would add the road work as a separate condition and add it as two conditions. That
Right.
if the site access left turn lane is something that you want first, that can be, site access as operational at the
When
at
school
the
opens again.
occupancy of the school, and then come up with what you believe is a reasonable date to complete the additional work. And what that does, that severs it out and eliminates any
So that
any
doesn't
concern.
impact their,
Correct. Their ability to occupy and all of those.
Don't we usually require like a 2-year after the opening of the building before the roads all have to be completed? Don't we have some kind of time like that?
for subdivision.
That's
Subdivision.
you get 2 years from approval to complete a subdivision.
Yeah. And this
Um,
is not a subdivision.
I would be happy
Add
to
that as a
amend
condition.
with conditions as suggested by Adam. A lot easier way of saying it.
So that you want them separated into two conditions.
But I think it is important to have, as we reiterated at some of the previous meetings, to have the site access, at least the left turn lane into the site,
It opens.
operational by the time in which this opens. And I think that can be accomplished, unless you advise me differently.
Through the chair, I would think that there's probably no reason why the roadway work at a minimum couldn't be done for the opening of school. Whether or not they're concerned about the state issuing a permit, I think that that's even possible. But most of the work is going to be on town property, town right-of-way. So once they have approval through conservation and they go through the bidding process and they acquire the property, which would require a town meeting vote, I can't see why all that can't happen in 2014 and construction starting in the spring of 2015. And I don't see a reason why the roadway work couldn't be completed that same year as well.
If it's not an issue, then there's no reason to condition it.
Right, and then if it became an issue, they could come back and
They could
petition.
amend it, yeah.
And I know the police chief wasn't able to attend tonight, but I know he was very concerned about the sidewalk, and I agree with him with that being in place for the
Right.
day that school opens. So I don't see any reason why that work can't be done. And and whether or not the traffic signal modifications have been approved, I suspect they would be, but that would be the only thing that would potentially not be completed. And if that wasn't done, worst case scenario is your left turn lane would remain a left turn lane, and whether or not you could stripe the other lanes or through left and a right. But again, I don't see it as a huge hurdle.
If that's the advice you're getting, then I don't see any reason to even add it as a condition.
I do think through the chair, it is critical that they start moving quickly on the design.
That's it, yeah. That's it. That's the reason I think it has to be approved tonight.
Well, in that case, I guess I would strike my condition and encourage them to move quickly, and if more time was needed, we could address later.
Dr. Brunel, when are you planning on putting the key in the front door and turning it?
The first day of the 2015-16 school year. So
August of that year, yeah.
August of that year.
Do we break a bottle of champagne over the corner or something?
We will have a
Yeah,
celebration.
so-
Yeah.
No, no.
Water, right.
Okay, so we have everything down, Adam? All right, so then I would move the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
We're good.
You're done.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very much, thank you.
Thank you.
I would entertain a motion that we all, huh? I'm not done.
Minutes, right?
Oh, yeah, we have 2 minutes to approve.
All Stacy's hard work, you're gonna ignore that?
We approved.
Well, I'm kind of angry at her.
Probably push back.
She abandoned me.
Oh, here we go with this.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion.
From January,
Over there and it's second to the-
January, we have two sets of minutes.
The
yeah.
7th and the,
Yeah, so you made a motion to approve the minutes from the 7th?
and,
Approve them all in total?
yeah,
Okay, 7th and the 14th.
yeah, seconded.
Send the minutes out.
Who made the motion? It's seconded.
Second,
Second, okay. Now, the motion,
all those in favor?
out.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. The ayes have it.
And
We're
motion
the
to
ayes.
adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes of what?